has not been called.
Correct. That's right.
Hi guys.
So
I'm
perhaps
sorry
they're
that
trying to
I
change their
disappeared. Oh, I'm not on camera.
And we left Ralph Norman and Keith Self
Oh, no, I
down
am.
in the well.
I am. Okay.
Don't know if
I
they're
am on
still
stream.
talking to the clerk
Hi
or
guys.
not. I presume they
My
are.
power went
Did
out
not see Tom
during
Massey
the
as part
last
of this
vote.
conversation. As
When
he has
they
said, he
ended
is
the
a hard
vote,
no. There's
there
Ralph Norman
were
again, South Carolina.
216 or 215 votes
House will be in
for.
order.
There were 215 votes for Jeffries, 214 votes. Or hold on, let me pull it up. Someone graciously in a Discord server did a spreadsheet during the vote. The vote currently has not been called. I assume that's why they were gaveling in. Let me just, that might be easier to do it this way. So at the end of the first roll, was 215 to 214. One vote for Donald. Jeffries had 215. Johnson had 214. Donald had one. Voted by Mr. Keith Self. Mr. Thomas Massey voted for former Representative Tom Emmer. One vote from Mr. Norman, who voted for Jim Jordan. And then the people that didn't vote were Andy Biggs, Cloud Clyde, Gosar Harris, Roy, and Waltz. And then Carson. Let's go back to the House.
Mr. Norman is recorded as Jordan.
House will be in order.
Mr. Norman, Johnson.
That gives Johnson 217.
Mr. Self is recorded as Donalds. Mr. Self, Johnson.
And there's the 218th vote. So the final vote, Johnson with 218, Jeffries with 215. One vote for Tom Emmer, and 0 voting present. A speaker has been elected on the first ballot. Mike Johnson will be returning to the speakership. And he will, I think he will be the 58th speaker. I could be wrong, but here we go. Or 57th speaker, excuse me. He might just be the 56th speaker still.
Well, it looks like Mike Johnson has the votes to be speaker, with Ralph Norman and Keith Self changing their votes from their first vote to Mike Johnson. The total is now 218, 215. 218 was needed for a majority of 434 members present and voting. Representative Tim Burchett is joining us by phone. He is a Republican from Tennessee. Congressman Burchett, what just happened on the floor of the House of Representatives?
Well, you had two members. One had voted for Jim Jordan. I think the other one voted for Byron Donalds, and they just flipped their vote. There was a question of whether the vote had been called or not, and so I guess they decided, the parliamentarians had not called the votes. But now Speaker Johnson is Speaker Johnson once again.
On the first vote, we saw Mike Johnson, Keith Self, and Ralph Norman walk off the floor together in a trio. What was that conversation about? Do you know, Mr. Burchett?
I would say it was where they wanted to be philosophically and what they needed to get that vote.
Now, you were on the list of questionables for Mike Johnson. I hate to characterize you,
okay.
but
No.
Is that a fair characterization?
That's a very fair characterization.
And
I prayed about it, and I figured out what I needed to do.
Why did you support Mike Johnson on the first ballot?
Because he's never lied to me, and I know where he's at philosophically. We just need to support him more in the conservative causes. And I think he's going to be a great speaker.
Tim Burchett, Republican of Tennessee, we appreciate your spending a minute with us. The House is back in session.
The Honorable Mike Johnson of the state of Louisiana has received 218.
Just barely enough to become speaker.
The Honorable Hakeem Jeffries of the state of New York has received 215. And the Honorable Tom Emmer of the state of Minnesota has received 1. Therefore, the Honorable Mike Johnson of the state of Louisiana, having received a majority of the
Emmer's
votes
still in the
cast,
House.
is
I thought
duly
he
elected
was
Speaker of
done.
the House of Representatives for the 119th Congress.
I thought he resigned. Or not resigned. I thought he refused to stand for re-election.
The clerk appoints the following committee to escort the Speaker-elect to the chair. The gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Scalise. The gentleman from New York, Mr. Jeffries. The gentleman from Minnesota, Mr. Emmer. The gentlewoman from Massachusetts, Ms. Clark. The gentlewoman from Michigan, Mrs. McLean. The gentleman from California, Mr. Aguilar. The gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Hudson. The gentleman from California, Mr. Liu. The gentleman from Oklahoma, Mr. Hearn. The gentleman from Colorado, Mr. Neguse. The gentleman from Utah, Mr. Moore. The gentlewoman from Washington, Ms. Delbene. The gentlewoman from Indiana, Mrs. Houchin. The gentleman from New York, Mr. Morelli. The gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Reschenthaler. The gentlewoman from Michigan, Mrs. Dingle. And the members of the Louisiana delegation, Mr. Higgins, Ms. Letlow, Mr. Carter, and Mr. Fields. The committee will retire from the chamber to escort the Speaker-elect to the chair.
They're going to drag Mike Johnson from the from the outside of the chamber up to the well, to the podium, where he will take his oath of office, probably prescribed by the clerk. Then he will give an address after he's been sworn in as speaker. And then he will swear in the members of Congress. I will be back on Monday for the certification of the election. To cover the election. This is a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a prolonged event. Luckily, it has not been a prolonged event, which is a good thing for us because it would be very hard for us to sit here and have to watch the election go on for the rest of the day. So as we wait for the people to drag the speaker to the chair,
And you're watching live coverage of the opening day of the 119th Congress. It's January 3rd, which is a constitutional date when the new Congress, has to elect a speaker and go into business. Mike Johnson has been elected speaker 218 to 215 to 1. He got the majority of 434 members. That is the full Congress right now. The full Congress is actually 435 members, but Matt Gaetz, who did get reelected from his district in Florida, chose not to be sworn in, so he is not in the Congress as of right now. Coming up in just a minute, Mike Johnson will be escorted down to the dais, and he will be introduced by Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic leader who came in second place when it comes to being speaker, by only 3 votes. So then we will hear from Mike Johnson after he is sworn in as Speaker of the House by the clerk. Mike Johnson will make a speech. He will swear in all the members elect. There is technically no member of Congress right now, until the speaker gets sworn in, and he can swear in all 434 other members. 219 Republicans, 215 Democrats. That's what's going to be happening this afternoon. The drama or the process of electing a speaker has concluded on one vote. It did take about 2 hours. We started this process at about 12:45 Eastern time, and it was 2:36 when they finally declared Mike Johnson to be the speaker, and that was on one vote. Matt Green is with Catholic University, a politics professor. Professor Green, what's your assessment of what's happened so far this afternoon?
Certainly it certainly not hasn't been as wild and drawn out as the last effort to elect a speaker after a new Congress in 2023. But at the same time, what we're seeing is the consequence of a very, very narrow majority that Republicans have, and the difficulty that both parties, but especially House Republicans, have had in keeping unified. When you have a very tiny majority on a vote where you're not going to get any votes from the other party, you've got to have everybody voting together. And only in this case takes a handful to say no, to prevent or at least delay the selection of a speaker from the majority party.
And if you are just joining us, the vote had stood at 216 to 215. 418 was needed. Three members voted for other people. Tom Massey, who promised that he was not going to vote for Mike Johnson all along, so he was already taken out of the equation, but he voted for the majority whip, Tom Emmer. Then Ralph Norman, Republican of South Carolina, voted for Republican Jim Jordan, and Keith Self voted for Republican Byron Donalds. Well, then we saw, because we have the C-SPAN cameras in there today, which is lovely, we got to see Speaker Johnson, Keith Self, and Ralph Norman huddle and then walk off the floor.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think happened there?
Well, we heard from a congressman about what he thought happened.
Tim Burchett.
Yeah, and so I think what Burchett said makes sense, which is that there was a conversation about what it is they need, what is it they want, and it could be anything from just a general promise to be a certain kind of speaker to something very specific. It can be bringing a bill to the floor. It could even be committee assignments. Who knows? I think we'll probably find out in the days ahead what that conversation was and what promises, if any, were made by Johnson.
But Ralph Norman and Keith Self had to walk down to the well, didn't they, to change their votes publicly?
Right, and that's a very important point, because we also had, I think, 7 Republicans choose not to vote
At all.
when their name first came up, which meant they would be called again. And so when their names were called again, they then said, I'll vote for Speaker Johnson. But because those 3 had voted, well, 2 of the 3, Massey never changed his vote, but the other 2 voted for a named candidate, they needed to go to the well and ask the clerk to change their vote, which is in some ways just a routine process. But if watching on C-SPAN, they had to walk down. The clerk had to say what their names were, how they originally voted, how they were going to change their vote. So it takes a bit more of an effort, and that's why Johnson had to go to the back room and have a conversation with them.
I remember, and maybe you are too young to remember this, but it was in '94, I believe it was. Bill Clinton was president. Marjorie Margolis Nisvinsky cast a vote on a budget tax bill, and she was basically sent down. They left, the Democrats were in control. They left the floor open. She had to walk down to change her votes, and did not win re-election. She changed her vote in support of this tax bill. So it's a very public way to cast a vote.
It is a public way, yeah. So that was the 1993 budget vote, and when she voted for the bill after waiting a long time as a holdout, the Republicans basically chanted, bye-bye. You're leaving after the next election.
You do remember that.
Right. So these 2 Republicans who switched their vote, they may have made their party in the House happy, the conference happy, but if they have constituents who didn't want them to vote for Johnson, they're going to have to explain why they chose to go to the well and actually change their vote. And so that's why, I think you generally don't want to do that if you can avoid it, because it does put a great deal of attention, a spotlight on why you chose to change your vote.
And both Keith Self and Ralph Norman, as well as Tom Massey, at least historically, are from very, very safe districts.
Yes, but the politics that we have now, safe means safe from the other party, but not necessarily safe in a primary election. So that is where you still have to worry as an incumbent that you could lose re-election.
Who was the longest serving speaker? Do you know offhand?
The longest serving speaker was Sam Rayburn, who first became speaker in 1941 and then served off and on until his death in 1961.
Democrat, Texas.
Democrat from Texas.
What was his special power? What was his ability?
His well, he had a lot of special powers, but he was a very good fit for the nature of the House and the Democratic caucus at the time. He was very good at negotiating. He was very good at sort of balancing the different wings of his party. He had a northern liberal.
I'm
wing,
learning
a
something.
southern
I did not know
conservative
this.
wing. Part of that was discussions and conversation. Part of it was making sure that the southern wing had sufficient influence in terms of sitting on committees and being chairs of committees. It also meant keeping certain things off the House floor that would divide his party, particularly civil rights, until not in his entire speakership, but for much of his speakership, trying to avoid the kind of public fights that would divide the party and give the minority Republicans leverage.
There was a speaker in the 1920s who was married to Alice Roosevelt Long, Joseph Long. Buildings were named after him, right? Nicholas Long.
Nicholas Longworth.
Right.
Yes.
Was he an impactful speaker?
He was. He didn't serve as long as folks like Rayburn, or I should mention also Pelosi, also served as speaker for quite a long time. But in terms of his ability to govern the House, he was fairly adept at it. He also, interestingly, was part of negotiations for a protracted battle for speaker in the 1920s. Not his race for speaker, but for, I believe it was Gillette was the Republican nominee. And there were a progressive bloc in the Republican conference who didn't want to vote for him. So he was part of the negotiations to try to get them successfully to vote for the Republican nominee.
Well, there are 3 House buildings on the other side of the Capitol. We've talked about Mr. Rayburn. He has a building named after him, Mr. Longworth, and then Mr. Cannon. We'll find out about Mr. Cannon a little bit later.
Johnson from the state of Louisiana.
I think that's Cuellar with the cane. She is about to swear Mike Johnson in as Speaker. Then he can give his speech and swear in the new Congress.
Speaker Johnson, Speaker Emerita Pelosi, it's great to see you back in the chamber. Whip Clark, Chairman Aguilar, thank you for your kind and generous words of nomination. To my colleagues in government, new members of Congress, families, friends, all those assembled. It's a high honor and a distinct privilege to welcome you to the People's House and the 119th Congress. The Bible teaches us in Ecclesiastes, the 3rd chapter, 1st verse, that for everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. It's fair to say that in a democracy, there's a time to campaign and a time to govern. The election is over. This is a new Congress. The American people need us as their elected representatives in this season to put down our partisan swords and pick up bipartisan plowshares. It's time for us to come together, not as Democrats or Republicans, but as Americans, to get things done for the people. In that spirit, House Democrats will work hard to find bipartisan common ground with our Republican colleagues in the incoming administration on any issue, whenever and wherever possible, in order to make life better for everyday Americans. For far too long in this country, the cost of living has gone up, but the size of the middle class has come down. Housing costs are too high. Grocery costs are too high. Childcare costs are too high. Insurance costs are too high. Utility costs are too high. America is too expensive. There are far too many people in this great country who for decades have been struggling to live paycheck to paycheck. That is not acceptable in the wealthiest country in the history of the world. We need to build an affordable economy for hard-working American taxpayers, and we need to build it now. It's time for us to come together and finally lower the high cost of living in the United States of America once and for all. And we will work with anyone of any party to get that done. We will work with anyone to secure our borders, and we will work with anyone to fix our broken immigration system in a comprehensive and bipartisan manner. At the same period of time, we will push back against far-right extremism whenever necessary. So let me be clear. Social Security and Medicare are not entitlement programs. They are earned benefits. Hard-working American taxpayers pay in to Social Security and Medicare every day, every week, every month, every year throughout their entire adult life. They've earned those benefits, worked hard for those benefits, and deserve those benefits. So as Democrats, our promise to the American people is that we will fight hard to make sure that no one in this town takes away Social Security or Medicare from the American people. Not now, not ever. No means never. Our position is that it is not acceptable to cut Social Security, cut Medicare, cut Medicaid, cut veterans benefits, or cut nutritional assistance from children and families in order to pay for massive tax breaks for billionaires and wealthy corporations. House Democrats will fight hard to protect working class Americans and the things that matter to them, not the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected. Keep your hands off Social Security and Medicare. Over the last 4 years, it's been a great honor for us to work alongside President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, whose administration rescued the economy from a once-in-a-century pandemic, delivered historic infrastructure investments, created more than 15 million good-paying jobs, enacted common-sense gun safety legislation for the first time in 30 years, provided life-sustaining health insurance to veterans suffering from toxic exposure, championed the largest investment in combating the climate crisis in the history of the world, which we will defend, and brought down the high price of life-saving prescription drugs for millions of Americans. Thank you, President Biden and Vice President Harris, for your powerful, principled, and purposeful public service. Thank you. Two months ago, the American people elected Donald Trump as the 47th President of the United States of America. Thank you for that very generous applause. It's okay. There are no election deniers on our side of the aisle. You see, one should love America. One should love America when you win and when you lose. That's the patriotic thing to do, and that's the America that House Democrats will fight hard to preserve because we love this country. America is bigger than any one campaign, any one election, or any one individual. America, the land of the free and the home of the brave. Let us never forget that our country is free, not simply because we are strong. America is strong because we are free. That freedom is now under assault. There are some in this country who apparently believe that the freedom of economic opportunity that made them wealthy should not apply to everyone else. Our message to that crowd is simple. Democrats will never abandon the long walk toward freedom. We will fight hard to defend the freedom of opportunity that makes the American dream possible. We will fight hard for the freedom to vote and to fight for a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. We will fight for the freedom to organize and join a union of your choice. We will fight to defend the free enterprise system, but work hard to make sure that it actually works for working class Americans. And we will always defend a woman's freedom to make her own reproductive health care decisions. America promises one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's the America House Democrats will fight hard to preserve. God bless you. God bless the House of Representatives. May God continue to bless the United States of America. It is now my responsibility to present the gavel to the gentleman from the great state of Louisiana, the son of a firefighter, a God-fearing man, a husband, and a loving father of four, the 56th Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, the Honorable Mike Johnson.
Five hundred and sixth speaker. 507th speaker.
Thank you.
I had to edit that. I noticed that I said 507.
Thank you so much.
He would
Thank
be
you, Leader
the
Jeffries.
He
All of our
is the
treasured colleagues here in the
56th
House.
speaker.
I'm grateful for this nomination. I'm grateful for this election, for the confidence this chamber has placed in me. It is the great honor of my life to serve this body with all of you. Of course, these are difficult days in our home state of Louisiana, where I come from. We all know about the terrorist attack in New Orleans, and it's really shaken our state. People are reeling from that attack. It took the lives of 14 innocent people, and it injured dozens more. And I wanted to begin appropriately today. If we could, I'd ask you all to join me in a moment of silence for the victims of this horrific act. Thank you. Thank you for that. I believe in giving honor where honor is due, and all of us do well to honor our spouses. My wife happens to be here this time. She didn't make it last time. It happened a little sudden. Kelly, would you stand up here in the gallery? Thank you.
So I will be back on Monday as well after the
And
swearing
we have
in.
4 children here: Hannah, Abby, Jack, and Will. We all stand up just really quickly. Come on.
They really look like both the
I wanted to
boys
do that.
very much
All of
look
us
like their
recognize
father.
that, there are no perks to being a congressman's kid, right? It's all sacrifice. And our spouses put up with so much, endless hours in travel and all the responsibilities upon us. And we're good to remind them how important they are to us and how we could not do the job without them. And so it's appropriate for all of us to do that. Thank you. Thank you, guys. This is a momentous time in the nation of the history of our nation. It really is. And as members of the 119th Congress, we are stewards of the great American Revolution that began almost exactly now 250 years ago, 1775 and 1776. It will fall at the time of this Congress, the great anniversary. And in these 2.5 centuries, we've been reminded repeatedly that freedom is never free. And we have stood tall as the greatest nation on the face of the earth. It is without debate. We are the freest, the most powerful, most benevolent nation that has ever been in the history of the world. And it's not by happenstance. We're the ones who settled the West. We're the ones who ended slavery, who laid the transcontinental railroad, who gave women the right to vote, who won 2 world wars, who landed on the moon, and who won the Cold War. Throughout our history, we have done what
Did
no
we
one
really
thought
win the Cold
was
War?
possible.
I don't think the Cold War really
Still,
ended.
At 250 years old, our nation is actually a young nation. This past fall, I had opportunity to go to the G7 speakers meeting. It was held in Italy. It's the only international trip I took as speaker over the last 14 months because I didn't have time to do it, but it was a quick 3-day jaunt, and met with my colleagues, the speakers of the other parliaments, the great governments around the world. And we talked about that, how really special America is, how unique we are in our place on the globe, and how important it is for us to maintain that. And as I talked to these colleagues from around the world, I thought our closest allies, who recognize how important we are, how important this body, this house is. I thought about how is it that such a young country has become so exceptional, so singular in its importance, that today stands as the world's leader in liberty and the economy and culture. 100 years ago, President Calvin Coolidge answered that very question in his inaugural address. It was March of 100 years ago, exactly almost. He said this: "We best serve our own country and most successfully discharge our obligations to humanity by continuing to be openly and candidly, intensely and scrupulously American." I love that. I love that. Today, yeah, that's right. That's an applause line. Today, my friends, our nation is the envy of the world. Why? Because we have been marked by a spirit and a people who are explicitly that. We are explicitly American. We don't try to be like other nations, and we recognize that a strong America is good for the entire world. And everybody around the globe knows that. That's right. We also recognize that the core principles that made America what we are must still be preserved today. The principles, I call them the 7 core principles of American conservatism, but it's really the 7 core principles of the nation itself. Individual freedom, limited government, the rule of law, peace through strength, fiscal responsibility, free markets, human dignity. These are the ingredients, the things that made us who we are. And in America, we know that human flourishing is best achieved by adherence to time-tested truths. We could list a number of those simple truths. Here's a couple. It's better to give a hand up than a hand out. That innovation thrives when bureaucracy dies. The simple truth that it is parents and families and not administrators that must be in charge of their children's education. The path of prosperity has long been paved with policies that put
What did he just say?
America and America. Prosperity has long. The path of prosperity must be in charge of their children's education. Parents and families and not administrators that must be in charge of their children's education.
But I disagree with that.
The path of prosperity has long been paved.
Because if that were the case, then why do we offer free and fair public education?
We'll champion in the 119th Congress.
Instead of, homeschooling every single kid, because that's what you're calling for, Mike.
We have a mandate, and that was shown in the election cycle. The people want an America First agenda. They do. Sadly, for the past 4 years of divided government, too many politicians in Washington have done the opposite. Open borders and overregulation have destroyed our cities and stifled innovation. Inflation and weak leadership have left Americans poorer, and they have placed our country in a perilous position.
Because your party caused the inflation with the Trump tax cuts, the Trump trade war, and then the Trump COVID relief stimulus package. All of the first 2 checks were done under Trump. He spent all of that money on the PPP program, which was improperly used by people that didn't even have businesses, because you could apply for the PPP loan even if you didn't have a business. and then they paid back, and then the federal government forgave all those PPP loans. So it's the Republicans' fault that we're under an inflationary government or an inflationary economy.
That's right. But in recent months, we've witnessed something happening, something that's really remarkable, a political moment in our modern history, a groundswell of Americans from every state, race, and religion who now demand that we put the interest of Americans first again, and we will, and we will. This is a powerful new coalition of our country. It's a coalition that insists that we purge the policies of America last and we bury them in the graveyard of history's mistakes, because it was a big mistake. To that end, this Congress will renounce the status quo and we will listen to the voices of the people. We will act quickly, and we will start by defending our nation's borders. That's the number one priority. Yes. In coordination with President Trump, this Congress will give our border and immigration enforcement agents the resources that they need to do their job. We will secure the border, we will deport dangerous, criminal, illegal aliens, and finally finish building the border wall. You said you'd work with us on that, Hakeem. I'm counting on it. After 4 years of high inflation, we have a big agenda. We have a lot to do, and we can do it in a bipartisan fashion. We can fight high inflation, and we must. We'll give relief to Americans, and we'll extend the Trump tax cuts. We're going to protect our industries from one-sided trade deals, and we're going to bring overseas investments back to America's shores. That's right. We'll defeat the harmful effects of inflation, and we'll make life affordable again for America's hardworking people. As leaders of a nation with vast natural resources that God has blessed us with, it is our duty to restore America's energy dominance, and that's what we'll do. We have to apply common sense. We have to stop the attacks on liquefied natural gas, pass legislation to eliminate the Green New Deal, that funding. We're going to expedite new drilling permits. We're going to save the jobs of our auto manufacturers, and we're going to do. I offered one that is quite familiar to historians and probably many of us. It said right here in the program, it says right under my name, it is said each day of his 8 years of the presidency and every day thereafter until his death, President Thomas Jefferson recited this prayer. I want to share it with you here at the end of my remarks, not as a prayer per se right now, but as really as a reminder of what our third president and the primary author of the Declaration of Independence thought was so important that it should be a daily recitation. Let me just read you that prayer. It goes like this. Thomas Jefferson's Prayer for the Nation, it's entitled. Almighty God, who has given us this good land for our heritage, we humbly beseech thee that we may always prove ourselves a people mindful of thy favor and glad to do thy will. Bless our land with honorable ministry, sound learning, and pure manners. Save us from violence, discord, and confusion, from pride and arrogance, and from every evil way. Defend our liberties and fashion into one united people the multitude brought hither out of many kindreds and tongues. Endow with thy spirit of wisdom those whom in thy name we entrust the authority of government, that there may be justice and peace at home, and that through obedience to thy law we may show forth thy praise among the nations of the earth. In time of prosperity, fill our hearts with thankfulness, and in the day of trouble, suffer not our trust in thee to fail, of which we ask through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. That was Thomas Jefferson's prayer. Yeah. Suffer not our trust in thee to fail. We will not fail. We cannot fail. We are all in this together. Our nation is counting on us to band together and solve these problems and get this done. I've said before that I believe God has elevated each one of you, that's just my belief, to your positions of leadership. And it's an act of providence that you've all been placed in your specific roles in this specific moment at this historic time, at the 250-year inflection point of the greatest nation in the history of the world. It is no small thing. We're also witnesses to the providence that spared our incoming president, President Trump, from the assassin's bullet, remarkable as that was, and to the new coalition of Americans that has risen from every creed, color, and cul-de-sac who want us to put America first. Our people are asking for a thriving economy and a rebuilt middle class and strong borders and a strong military, and we can deliver that. See, these objectives and these aims don't have an R or a D behind them. They have a USA. That's what we're about. In just a few moments, we're all going to take an oath. It is the same one oath for one nation and under the banner of one great American flag. This is an opportunity for us to protect our shared American heritage, to maintain the conditions needed for self-government, and to defend what Hakeem said earlier, the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Working together, we had the potential to be one of the most consequential Congresses in the history of this great nation. So long as we work together, we do the right thing, and we put America first. As we think about all we've accomplished in the past 250 years, we can only imagine what life will be like 250 years from now. Whatever the future may look like, if we do our jobs now, we can help ensure that our civic virtues will endure, that this nation will still be an example to all the world for its greatness and its example of self-government, and that in spite of our great challenges and even our disagreements and our healthy debates, this extraordinary institution, the People's House, will still be standing strong. Thank you all so much, and God bless America. So as the sequence of events requires, I am now ready to take the oath of office. I ask the Dean of the House of Representatives, the Honorable Harold Rogers of Kentucky, to administer the oath. Hold just a second, Dean. We don't have the microphone on yet.
Celebrate our shared American self-rule. When our founding fathers rejected calls for an American king and chose a bold and innovative government of self-rule, it was met by opposition, understandably, by the world's kings. They said, "You can't govern yourself. You need a king to direct the country." They said, "It's only a dream, self-rule." The founding fathers said, "You're right. It's the American dream." And thus our founders said that we should move on our own with our own leadership. The Speaker of the House is the critical protector and promoter of self-rule, the keeper of the dream, if you will. And we've elected this man from Louisiana to carry on our bold experiment in democracy and self-rule. So, sir, if you're ready to assume this awesome responsibility, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that you take this obligation freely, that you take this obligation without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which you're about to enter, so help you God.
I do.
Congratulations, Mr. Speaker. Well done.
You may as well remain standing because according to precedent, the chair will swear in the members-elect en masse. The members-elect will all rise. The chair will now administer the oath of office. Will you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that you take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which you are about to enter, so help you God. Congratulations, you are now members of the 119th Congress.
And there is the swearing in of the 119th Congress. The next thing on the list is they're going to debate the rule package. I will cover this for passage. They will pass this today.
And you're watching live coverage of the 119th Congress opening day. The Congress has now been sworn in. There are 434 members of the Congress. There is a Speaker of the House elected on one ballot. That one ballot took about 2 hours, though, and that is Speaker Mike Johnson from Bossier City, Louisiana. He has been reelected. Hakeem Jeffries is the leader of the Democrats. So one vote got Speaker Johnson elected. It was a little bit dramatic at times. The vote was left open. It was 216 to 215 in favor of Mike Johnson. He needed 218 to win. And one person voted for somebody else, and that was Tom Massey, Republican of Kentucky. So the vote was left open. Two votes, two people, Ralph Norman and Keith Self, had voted for other members of Congress. They and Speaker Johnson were huddled on the floor. We were able to see that because C-SPAN has its cameras there today. And they walked off the floor. And according to all sources, or several sources, they got a phone call from Donald Trump. And Ralph Norman and Keith Self then came to the well of the floor and changed their votes, their original votes, and voted for Mike Johnson. Mike Johnson became Speaker of the House on the first ballot. Now, Keith Self is a Republican from Texas. Here is what he tweeted out afterwards on X. He said that my sole focus was advancing the Trump agenda. To ensure this, I expressed concerns to Speaker Johnson about fiscal responsibility and holding the line on deficit spending, key priorities for my constituents. So that happened after the fact.
Alrighty, so here's the
We've had the
clerk.
Speaker sworn in. We've had the Congress sworn in. The next thing on the agenda is the approval of the rules package. We are joined here at C-SPAN by Catholic University political science professor Matthew Green. Professor Green, what's the significance of the rules package that they included on day one?
So after the start of every Congress, the House of Representatives passes a rules package, and that set of rules governs the way that the House will operate. And for the most part, the rules don't change very much from one Congress to another. But if there is a new majority party, or if there are perceived flaws or problems that are in the existing rules, then after an election, the majority party may desire to change the rules to address those concerns.
Some of the rules that have been changed. Number one is motion to vacate threshold, motion to vacate the Speaker of the House chair, raised to 9 members.
Yes. So this is a clear response to the problems Republicans had in the previous Congress.
Where one person.
Exactly. Now, if we want to go back a little bit further, that was the standard rule in the House for many, many years. And then it started to be used by conservative Republicans who were unhappy with their leadership. So when Nancy Pelosi and Democrats took over the House, they changed the rules so that you had to be from the party itself, not just one member had to make this motion, or technically it's a privilege resolution to vacate the chair. But as a part of the negotiations that Kevin McCarthy made with Republicans to get elected Speaker, he went back to the original rule, which proved to be very problematic because Congressman Matt Gaetz used that rule to force the House to consider whether to keep him as Speaker, and they voted not to keep him as Speaker. So this is a clear response to that, where Republicans aren't going to go to the Pelosi model, but they are going to raise the threshold. So you need 9 Republicans to offer this resolution, or offer it and co-sponsor it, in order for it to be privileged.
Anything significant about 9?
I don't know where the number 9 came from. I will say what's significant is that more than 9 Republicans chose not to vote for Johnson, at least initially, in this ballot. So they may have been signaling to him, look, there's more than enough of us to meet and exceed that threshold if we're unhappy with your how you're doing as Speaker.
Also in the rules package, the Oversight and Accountability Committee is being renamed back to the Oversight and Government Reform Committee. The Office of Diversity and Inclusion for the House is being eliminated. Significant.
So the first thing you mentioned is a naming is a naming change. I would argue that is not significant. Certainly, with a Trump White House, Republicans in the House are probably a little less concerned about holding the White House accountable.
And we're going to go back to the House live.
The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Michigan, Mrs. McClain.
Mr. Speaker, as chair of the Republican conference, I am directed by that conference to notify the House officially that the Republican members have selected as Majority Leader the gentleman from Louisiana, the Honorable Mr. Steve Scalise.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Aguilar.
Mr. Speaker, as the chairman of the Democratic caucus, I have been directed to report to the House that the Democratic members have selected as Minority Leader the gentleman from New York, the Honorable Hakeem Jeffries.
Yay! The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Michigan, Mrs. McClain.
Mr. Speaker, as chair of the Republican conference, I am directed by
Here's
that
your new
conference
leadership.
to notify the House officially that the Republican members have elected as Majority Whip the gentleman from Minnesota, the Honorable Tom Emmer.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Aguilar.
Mr. Speaker, as the chairman of the Democratic caucus, I have been directed to report to the House that the Democratic members have selected as Minority Whip the gentlewoman from Massachusetts, the Honorable Catherine Clark.
The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Michigan, Mrs. McClain.
Mr. Speaker, I offer a privilege resolution and ask for its immediate consideration.
The clerk will report the resolution.
House Resolution 1. Resolved that Kevin McCumber of the state of Illinois be and is hereby chosen clerk of the House of Representatives. That William McFarland of the state of Maryland be and is hereby chosen sergeant at arms of the House of Representatives. And
New
that
House
Catherine
clerk.
Spindor of the Commonwealth of Virginia be and is hereby chosen Chief Administrative Officer of the House of Representatives.
The gentlewoman from Michigan.
Mr. Speaker, I yield to the gentleman from California, Mr. Aguilar, for the purpose of offering an amendment.
Mr. Speaker, I offer an amendment to the resolution offered by the gentlewoman from Michigan.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment offered by Mr. Aguilar of California, that Jamie Harrison of the state of South Carolina be and is hereby chosen clerk of the House of Representatives. That Becky Cornell of the state of New York be and is hereby chosen sergeant at arms of the House of Representatives. And that Brooks Scannell of the state of Massachusetts be and is hereby chosen Chief Administrative Officer of the House of Representatives.
Why would they do
The
that?
amendment offered by the gentleman from California. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed? No. The noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to. The question is on the resolution offered by the gentlewoman from Michigan. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? No. The ayes have it. The resolution is agreed to, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Pursuant to the provisions of Section 208A of the Legislative Reorganization Act of 1946, the chair appoints Reverend Dr. Margaret Grun Kibben of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to act as and to exercise the duties of the chaplain of the House of Representatives effective today. The chair will now swear in the officers of the House. Will you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that you take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which you are about to enter, so help you God? Congratulations. We'll go here.
Is that guy taking the chair? Because they're supposed to be on the dais, but I think that's the new clerk. He's not supposed to be by the chair. If that's the new clerk. That also might be the House parliamentarian.
And this is live coverage of the opening day of the 119th Congress. Next on the agenda is a debate on the rules for the 119th Congress, and then a vote, and that should be the end of the day. There may be some 1-minute speeches, et cetera, at the end of the day, but we do want to let you know that Donald Trump has tweeted out that congratulations to Speaker Mike Johnson for receiving an unprecedented vote of confidence in Congress. Mike will be a great speaker, and our country will be the beneficiary. The people of America have waited 4 years for common sense, strength, and leadership. They get it now, and America will be greater than ever before. Debate on the House rules.
From the state of Louisiana has been elected Speaker, and that Kevin McCumber, a citizen of the state of Illinois, has been
Susan
elected
Cole
Clerk
is
of
the
the House
reading
of
clerk.
Representatives of the 119th Congress.
Without objection, the resolution is agreed to, and the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. For what purpose does the gentleman from Louisiana seek recognition?
For a privileged resolution and ask for its immediate consideration.
The clerk will report the resolution.
House Resolution 3, resolved that a committee of 2 members be appointed by the Speaker on the part of the House of Representatives to join with a committee on the part of the Senate to notify the President of the United States that a quorum of each House has assembled and Congress is ready to receive any communication that he may be pleased to make.
Without objection, the resolution is agreed to, and the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Without objection, pursuant to House Resolution 3, the chair announces the Speaker's appointment of the following members to the committee on the part of the House to join a committee on the part of the Senate to notify the President of the United States that a quorum of each House has assembled and the Congress is ready to receive any communication that he may be pleased to make. The gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Scalise, and the gentleman from New York, Mr. Jeffries. For what purpose does the gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. Rogers, seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I offer a privileged resolution and ask for its immediate consideration.
The clerk will report the resolution.
House Resolution 4, resolved that the clerk be instructed to inform the President of the United States that the House of Representatives has elected Mike Johnson, a representative from the state of Louisiana, as Speaker, and Kevin McCumber, a citizen of the state of Illinois, as Clerk of the House of Representatives of the 119th Congress.
Without objection, the resolution is agreed to, and the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. one out.
Can they debate the rules package, please?
And live coverage of the opening day of the 119th Congress. The debate on the rules package will begin momentarily, and we will certainly go to it as soon as it starts. We talked about the motion to vacate. The threshold is up to 9 members. We talked about the renaming of the Oversight and Accountability Committee back to the Oversight and Government Reform Committee. Some of the other rule changes that are coming up: elimination of the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, and an authorization for subpoenas from the House Judiciary Committee related to the Department of Justice's Biden investigation. Matthew Green is a professor of politics at Catholic University here in Washington, D.C. He is with us. Professor Green, the DEI elimination and the subpoenas elimination, are those significant rule changes?
I guess it depends on your perspective. I think the DEI certainly reflects the view of the Republican Party at large. They're skeptical of DEI initiatives. So, whether that is a good or bad thing, I think it's not surprising that the Republicans would do that. As far as the DOJ, this certainly suggests that the House Republicans are going to continue their investigation into Biden, the Biden family, how the Biden family was investigated. Whether that's sustained or not is unclear, because technically Republicans have the majority in the House, majority in the Senate, and the White House. And so whether they want to focus on that as opposed to other issues that might be important to the Republican Party.
I'm begging the Republicans in Congress, do not go after the outgoing president.
When we were talking during the break, you mentioned that there was
He may not be the president that you wanted elected in 2020,
right.
but
So one of
it is
these
not
rules
okay to go
changes
after
is
the
that instead
outgoing
of one
president.
member being able to offer a privileged resolution to vacate the chair, or a motion to vacate, as people call it, that threshold's been raised to 9. But in addition, it only applies to members of the majority party, meaning as before, any member, Republican, Democrat, could offer a privileged resolution to vacate the chair, and it would be privileged. It would have to come to the floor. But this new rule says only Republicans, because they're the majority party, can offer a privileged resolution. So if 9 Democrats want to remove Johnson, they have to offer a resolution under the regular order, and that resolution would go to a committee where it could be killed or could die. They can't force the House to vote on it. This is the first time, I think, in the history of the House that the ability to remove a speaker under special rules, if you will, or a privileged process, applies only to members of one party.
That debate on the rules package will begin momentarily, and that should be the end of business for the House of Representatives today. They will be back on Monday. Monday is a significant day, January 6th as well. What's going to happen?
Big day.
Monday?
Well, that is the electoral college votes are counted, and that's when they're tallied up, and then whoever has the most Electoral College votes, becomes the president of the United States.
And does the speaker have a role in that?
So the speaker does preside over the House during that process, which was why a number of people were concerned that if Johnson did not win this vote today, the House would not be able to proceed with its constitutional duty to count the ballots and determine who the winner was. That probably was not the case, but that's one of the things that made this vote so significant for Speaker.
In the counting of the ballots, does the Senate have a role?
So the members are there, the House and Senate, and actually it is a bicameral process. So
Senate
it's not
comes
just
over to the House.
Right, exactly, yeah. So there is a formal process, and I believe if I remember correctly, the Vice President is there who's counting the ballots.
So Vice President Harris will be presiding over the counting of the ballots. Al Gore did that in 2000, I believe, after he lost the presidency.
Richard Nixon in 1960. Same thing. It's a little awkward when you ran for president.
That's kind of a tough assignment, isn't it? We've been watching Kamala Harris over on C-SPAN 2 with the greeting the new members and having pictures taken, the new members of the Senate, and kind of probably a tough assignment.
Yes, but that's the beauty of our democracy, that if you lose an election, you still have to follow the rules, and this is a process that you have to follow, even if it means you are literally presiding over your own election loss.
12 new senators, 63 new members of the House of Representatives out of a total of 435 seats, 15% or so. I hope I did my math almost correct, about 15% turnover in the House of Representatives, 33 new Democrats, 30 new Republicans. There are 150 women in the House of Representatives, again, 435 total, which we learned from a reporter earlier is a record. And there's a record number of Republican women. There's also over 100 veterans in the current Congress. So just want to share those tidbits with you as we go. We're going to return to the House of Representatives and the rules package debate to begin momentarily.
What is taking so long to do this? I mean, the House is normally the slower house anyways. When it comes to the more
And as we wait for the rules package to be debated in the House of Representatives, we kind of want to do a recap of the last, let's see, it's going on 4 o'clock here on the East Coast. We began all this at noon when the House is constitutionally required to come into the session for the new Congress. So we've been at this for about 4 hours this afternoon. House has been doing all the heavy lifting. We've just been adding commentary. And I'm glad you've been with us. And it's always fun on opening day and big events like this when we get to put our own C-SPAN cameras and our own C-SPAN crews on the floor of the House, because then we get some different angles and different shots that you don't always see. And for the most part, the cameras, for the all part, the cameras are controlled by the House of Representatives, except on these special days. So we appreciate the Speaker allowing us to put our cameras in there, and I hope you have noticed that we're getting some unique and fun shots. Matthew Green has been with us all afternoon as well. He is with Catholic University, political science professor. Professor Green, we saw some pretty unique stuff going on throughout. We saw a lot of lobbying. We saw Speaker Johnson talking with members. We saw some of the members caucusing. Tom Massey, who was the only no vote on the Republican side in the end, who voted against Speaker Johnson, talking with Marjorie Taylor Greene. And according to a tweet that came out, Marjorie Taylor Greene, when she was on her phone, I don't know if you were watching then, but if you were, she was on her phone, she was talking with Susie Wiles, who is President-elect Trump's chief of staff, according to several news report. She was on the phone with Susie Wiles. At one point, we saw two of the dissenters, Ralph Norman and Keith Self, walk off and first huddle and then walk off with Speaker Johnson. According to several news sources, President Trump called and talked to both of those members, who then came down and changed their vote. In a historical sense, how would you rate today?
It was pretty strong.
You know, I'm sorry. I gave, that was one of those questions that, you know, you're just kind of a prop for me, and I apologize.
I mean, it's important. It's significant. It's very unusual in the history of the House to have either an election where no one is elected speaker, or it is a delayed process, as we saw with these negotiations happening in the cloakroom. We ended up having Johnson elected on the first round, which is the norm for contemporary congressional history. But we had 7 Republicans initially refused to vote, 3 who voted for someone else. So there was this. It took longer than usual. It was also this negotiations that were happening as well. And I'm just going to second the fact that I think that the ability of C-SPAN to have their cameras showing all these different angles is a real blessing, and I would wish that this was the norm in the House of Representatives, because it really helps the American people who are watching see politics in action.
Well, as you know, political viewers know, President Trump endorsed Mike Johnson for Speaker prior to today, and then when Mike Johnson and Ralph Norman and
Okay, we
Keith
are
Self,
live.
2 Republican members, walked off into the cloakroom, several news sources are reporting that President Trump called and talked with both Keith Self and Ralph Norman. This is after the Speaker election was finally finished. The result was 218 for Speaker Johnson, 215 for Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic leader, and 1, Tom Massey's vote, for the Republican whip, Tom Emmer of Minnesota. Here is the Truth Social post by Donald Trump. Congratulations to Speaker Mike Johnson for receiving an unprecedented vote of confidence in Congress. Mike will be a great speaker, and our country will be the beneficiary. The people of America have waited 4 years for common sense, strength, and leadership. They'll get it now, and America will be greater than ever before. Professor Green, would it be safe to say that the House of Representatives is the strongest scene or place for the Democrats to push their own agenda?
Well, they have a large minority in the House of Representatives. That's right. It's a very, very tiny majority for Republicans. And we heard Congressman Aguilar say earlier on the floor that we have the procedural majority. So in some ways, Democrats will have, because of their size, considerable leverage. The question is, what is that leverage for? So it may be hard for them to have positive agenda control or positive legislative influence, meaning what they would like to see enacted it may not really happen or not happen very often, but preventing things from happening because House Republicans may be divided, that is more likely. But there could also be things, these sort of must-pass bills, appropriations bills, things like that. Republicans have to get them enacted, and that's where Democrats might be able to negotiate at least on the margins and get some things in those bills that they would want in exchange for their votes.
In the first round of voting, well, the only round of voting that we had, several Republicans did not vote at all. We talked about the 3 dissenters who voted for other people, but there were 7, 8 Republicans who did not answer when their names were called. What was their strategy?
It's hard to say what they were thinking, but my guess at this point is that they were demonstrating to the speaker that their votes were needed and that he could not get elected speaker without their votes. In fact, in theory, if enough of them had chosen not to vote, Jeffries could have been elected speaker. And they weren't going to let that happen, obviously. But by doing that, they're signaling to the speaker, we matter, we're important, you need to listen to us.
This is a report out by a reporter from ABC. A bleeding Representative Virginia Fox is currently receiving medical attention. Holding her nose as she receives aids, appears to have fallen down marble stairs on the west side of the house. Lots of blood, but officer tells me she's okay. As press is cleared from the area, she is conscious and talking. Virginia Fox, a Republican from North Carolina. She was sitting right behind Lisa McClain when Lisa McClain of Michigan introduced or nominated Mike Johnson. Gray hair, glasses. She's been up there for a long time. Western North Carolina is her home district. Speaking of falling down marble steps, we also saw somebody else on the floor of the House who had fallen down marble steps in Luxembourg.
I'm sorry, you're referring to
Nancy Pelosi.
Oh, yes. Okay.
And broke her hip.
Right. And so, yeah, so Pelosi she was injured. She was able to come back to the floor of the House. But I think what these two incidents have in common is the fact that when you have a very, very small majority or a very narrow margin between the two parties, the health of your members matters, their ability to come and vote. So maybe Johnson won this vote today and was speaker, but if he has a few members who can't come for whatever reason, health reasons or whatever, and all members of the Democratic Party show up, he won't have a working floor majority. And so this is one of the stresses that come with the job of being speaker with a very, very small majority.
But he also has control over the schedule and keeping the vote open, correct?
So there is the ability of the speaker to not have things, and the majority party in general keep things from the floor. And yes, this has happened in the past where the majority parties kept the vote open. We just saw that, right, with the vote for speaker in order to get more votes. But keeping a vote open won't help if you have members who are out of the way or hospitalized and can't come. And then keeping things from the floor might help in the short run. But if there's an agenda you want enacted, and it needs to be enacted sooner rather than later, and you can't do it because you can't get members to the floor, it's at a minimum an inconvenience. But at worst, it can potentially derail your agenda.
Matt Green, is it too early to write the history of Nancy Pelosi's speakerships?
So every time I've seen a history told of Nancy Pelosi, she goes and does something else that's historic or significant. She is not speaker. She's not going to be speaker again. So I suppose it might be a safer time to try to write the history of her speakership. But she's still a member of the House. She still has a lot of influence among Democrats in the House. It's entirely possible that she may be a player in some future legislative negotiation that we haven't thought of.
According to Kyle Cheney from Politico, Judge Merchant is saying he will sentence Donald Trump on January 10th. How does that add into the conversation of politics?
Wait. January 10th?
This is a wild card.
What day is January 10th?
Legal issues surrounding Trump, both legally and politically.
Is that next Thursday?
You know,
That's next Friday.
I have a hard time. I'm very hesitant to predict the future when it comes to what Donald Trump will do or what will happen to him. He's such an interesting wild card player in American politics. So I have no idea.
Well, let's go back to the House of Representatives. We talked earlier about the longest serving speaker. That was Sam Rayburn. There's a building named after him. We talked about the husband of Alice Roosevelt Longworth, Nicholas Longworth. There's a building named after him. There's a third building on the House side named the Cannon Building. Who is that named after, and how is he as a speaker?
So that was named after Joseph Cannon, who was Speaker of the House. He was from Illinois. He served from, I believe, 1903 to 1910 as Speaker, though he'd been a House member before and after, actually. And he was probably one of the, if not the strongest speakers in terms of procedural power that we've had in our history. He controlled the agenda. He determined committee assignments by himself, not with other members. And his sort of iron grip over the House gave him and Republicans a lot of power, but it also became a political liability as Democrats started to call him Czar Cannon and say that he was an autocrat who was keeping things from coming to the floor. And it ended up hurting him among progressives in his party who felt that he was blocking their agenda. And that actually, his speakership was the first one in which the House recognized a privilege resolution to vacate the chair, his ability to remove a chair. He was not removed, but the House did, by a bipartisan vote, weaken his power He then called for a privilege resolution or a motion to vacate his position as Speaker, which he won, so he remained Speaker. But the Republicans lost majority in the House after 1910, and Democrats deliberately adopted a model of the speakership that was less centralized than the Cannon model.
We haven't talked about Speaker Newt Gingrich in a while. Elected in 1994, the Republicans came in 1994. He was Speaker from 95 to 98, something like that. What was his impact?
His impact was pretty significant, actually. Jeff Crouch is a professor at American University, and I recently wrote a book about Gingrich and talked about how he rose to power and what his speakership was like. He, in some ways, inaugurated a newer model of the speakership that was closer to Cannon's, because he personally exercised more influence over the House and sought to further centralize power in the speakership. And there were other things that he did as well as Speaker that continued after him. But if nothing else, he was the first Republican Speaker in 40 years. And that itself was a significant shift, almost an earthquake on Capitol Hill, with Democrats no longer in the majority and Republicans now in the majority with a new, younger, and a Speaker willing to flex his muscles.
We're still waiting on the House to come back and finish debate or start debate on the rules package for the 119th Congress. But off in the Speaker's lobby is the ceremonial swearing in of members of the House. You can see Speaker Mike Johnson swearing in members. He will go back and forth. For all the members who want to have a picture taken with their families, both D's and R's come, and they did the same thing for Nancy Pelosi as well when she was Speaker. This is a ritual on Capitol Hill. Kamala Harris has been doing the same thing in the old Senate chamber in the Capitol on the Senate side. So, and that was happening on C-SPAN too. So let's dip in and watch this for a while, see if they have any chats.
Speaker, we got crew. Honey, can you say hi? Are you good to see you? It's such a strong there. Yeah. You can see. I'm sure I'm glad you won. You can have to sit right up here on this sideline right there. We can have somebody come around on this side. There you go. That's shuffled in. We're going to have a look at this camera. Ready? Right here. 1, 2, 3. Appreciate you. Yes, sir. We did. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, there he is. Oh, yeah.
You know what? This House Rules package will be adopted. I'm going to end the stream for today, being that I will be live for almost all day on Monday. So have a good day. Bye now.